Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode, conversation of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I'm one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Machel Santokie, and with me as ever is my partner in crime, Santokie Nagilendran. Santokie, how you doing?
Yeah, Mash, you know how it goes. The road to 2025 starts. The World Test Championship is upon us. We're looking to pick up the W straight away. You know, we just got the minor event of India touring the Caribbean for 2 tests in Dominica and Trinidad. Cricket West Indies have recently, in the past 48 hours, announced the 13-man squad. So we're here. We thought, you know what? Let's do a live show, dissect it all, interact with the fans, and chop it up about the West Indies squad, Mash.
Yeah. So first things first, let's just name the squad for those who don't know it. Craig Brathwaite, captain. Jermaine Blackwood, vice-captain. Tej Narayan Chanderpaul. Joshua De Silva. Rahkeem Cornwall. Jason Holder. Alec Athanaze. Raymond Reefer. Shannon Gabriel, Alzari Joseph, Kirk McKenzie, Kimar Roach, Jamel Warrican, and the travelling reserves are Tevin Imlak and Akeem Jordan. And I guess, that's the squad, and of course there'll be the kind of ramifications, and there'll be the discussions, and there'll be the cuss outs. Like any West Indies squad that's named for any format of cricket, people will complain about the squad that's been chosen. We kind of, Santokie, got an inkling of what was to come, though, when West Indies announced, about 4 days ago, that Jason Holder and Alzari Joseph would be flying home early from the after we lost to Scotland, that they'd be flying home early to go and do some test prep. And most of us, well, certainly you and I, said that must mean at least Chase or Mayers isn't playing, at least one of them, if not both of them, because they wouldn't have time there wouldn't be enough time really to prep for the first test. Now, coming out of the last test engagement we had, which was South Africa away, I think it would be fair to say that the 2 players who are most at risk of drops anyway were Chase and Mayers, because we always said that there was an issue with our top 6. You couldn't bat Chase at number 5 when he doesn't produce regularly enough. You can't bat Mayers at number 6 when his batting average over the last 19 or 20 plus innings in Test cricket is 21. So let's deal with that first. Are you surprised to see Mayers and Chase out?
Chase, I kind of am, because he has that knack of being in any squad, regardless of the format. So it is a surprise to not see him there. As you said, though, he was someone on the verge. Mayers, according to selector Desmond Haynes, is carrying a slight injury. So that's why Mayers isn't included in the squad. We don't know. It sounds like from the description that it's just a small niggle. So he could be back for the second test. So it sounds like the Mayers one was enforced.
Wait, hold on. Do you believe that? Mayers played in both matches against Oman, and he bowled his 10 overs. He bowled his allocation against Sri Lanka. So whatever injury they've got, unless they specifically mean he can't get through a 5-day match. Yeah. If he was injured, you'd fly him home early, and you'd say, well, boy, there's no point in you playing these last 2 games of the World Cup qualifiers. You're carrying an injury. Do you see where I'm coming from? It's convenient for me.
It is convenient, but, you know, we have to kind of go with what's been said. I feel like if it was a drop like Chase was getting dropped for just tactical reasons, they wouldn't have mentioned that at all. So it could be something along those lines. But as you said, Mash, if it was that big an injury, he wouldn't have played in the qualifiers, is what it is. But they've covered themselves. They've said it's a slight injury issue, and they've compared it to Jaden Seals. Obviously, Jaden Seals is in the squad because he's not 100% fit. So for now, I guess on paper, we have to put down Mayers as a fitness issue as to why he's not playing in there. So it's kind of enforced. And obviously Moti has a long-term injury. He missed the World Cup qualifiers. He'll be missing this series. So yeah, we've got, for all the talk about the test side doing well and being quite stable, we've got 3 vacancies in the 11 going into that India series. So I mean, Mash, the stars are aligned. The first test is taking place in Dominica with Chase and Mayers out. Surely it's 100% guaranteed then Athanaze makes his West Indies debut in front of a home crowd on Wednesday.
Yeah, most definitely. But and we've got to be careful with the Athanaze thing, because for me, Athanaze was going to debut regardless. So that's why I'm saying one of Chase or Mayers was always going to have to hold a drop in Dominica, because it was it was a lock that Athanaze would debut in Dominica regardless, right? So for me, it's just much of a muchness that both Chase and Mayers are now out of the squad, because it just clears the path to ensure that Athanaze debuts, and rightly so to speak. The bigger talking point really in terms of replacements, and just before I even get into it, because it's always important to compare squads to squads. So the test squad that went to South Africa, just to remind people the changes since the South Africa series, Athanaze was already in that test squad, right? Akeem Jordan was in there. Devon Thomas, obviously, we'll get onto that in a minute, but he's obviously fighting the case that he's got now, so he's out. So I guess the reason why I bring that up is Athanaze was in the squad anyway. To me, he's not a new selection. He was there in the South Africa series, and that was telling us you are the next batter on the cab rank. You are going to get your chance soon. And after South Africa, we all knew, well, boy, one of Chase and Mayers has to go. It's time for Athanaze to get his chance, right? So Athanaze, cool. Let's talk about Kirk McKenzie, though. Now, this is how you know, for people listening, this is how you know that I don't do insularity, right? I'm Jamaican-born, proud Jamaican, but I can't understand how Kirk McKenzie is already in a West Indies test squad. How about that, right? And let me explain why I can't, Santokie. You see what this pick smacks of? This pick shows, in a nutshell, how poor our developmental system is. Now, let me explain. And if there's any Jamaicans on this live in the comments, please send your comments in as well, because I'd love to know what the Jamaican crew think about this. If you ask any Jamaican who's invested in Jamaica cricket, and there's not many of us left, but if you asked any Jamaican about it, they would have said to you a year ago, Kirk McKenzie ain't ready for Jamaica cricket, much less West Indies cricket, right? Any true follower of Jamaica cricket would have said that, right? So then Kirk McKenzie plays a couple games in the three games in the West Indies Championship for the Scorpions, scores 150, averages about 20, I think. Then he how did he get his breakthrough against Santokie? Was it playing for the academy team? Yeah, he played in the Headley Week series, scores a double century. What I'm effectively saying, Santokie, to cut a long story short, how did Kirk McKenzie go from you've scored a double century for the team for the academy team in that Headley Week series? Okay, yes, he then went and backed it up with some good scores in the West Indies A versus Bangladesh A, and man straight into the squad just like that. Good for Kirk McKenzie. Don't get this wrong, people. Don't get this twisted. Good for Kirk McKenzie. I'm glad for the youth. But how do you go that quickly into an international squad, Santokie?
It doesn't make any sense, Mash. I think there's a lot of recency bias to that. Obviously, as you said, he hit a double century for the academy. Then I think he got 86 and the 91 for West Indies A against Bangladesh. But surely you let the man play another regional season before you throw him into. He's played 9 first-class games and he's in the West Indies 13 for a test against India. So India,
not even respectfully, not even like Zim or Bangladesh. India, straight in.
And the thing is, like, it's not even as if like we've got Bonner, Darren Bravo still around. If you're those two players, you're thinking, what is going on at the moment? So, I mean, McKenzie could prove us wrong. He could play against India and score big. But based on the evidence and the data, which is what we always go by, it just doesn't make any sense to rush him in to this test series. I don't know what benefit it's going to prove to McKenzie.
Now, Supernova raises a good point. He said, but Mash, you said yourself a while ago that you have to pick out talent and those who can be developed for the future and identify them early into the system. Yes, I agree. But that doesn't mean after 9 first-class games, you come and play international cricket. And obviously some of you will say, but Jaden Seals managed to do it without playing any. But my thing is this. As Santokie kind of just said, what, you don't even want him to play not even another season, not even one more season with the academy or Jamaica Scorpions or nobody, just straight in. We know already that we have a batting issue in the region, right? This isn't like Alec Athanaze coming into the squad off the back of 100, 50, 50 consistency for well over a year. This isn't like Tej Chanderpaul with years of domestic cricket behind him and clearly got the temperament to to test him at the international level. This is literally man scored 200 4 months ago straight into the test squad. And after seasons of failure, Kirk's not done anything yet. He's just scored a recent 200 and in you go. And actually, Santokie, what this highlights is something you and I have spoken about on shows before, that you basically now get into the West Indies team once you do one score, and you keep your spot if you score over a 50. That's the danger and precedent you're setting here.
It's interesting as well, because when we did our interview with Kishore Shallow, he essentially lamented the fact that rather than it being a standout performance for the academy players, it was more to do with the poorness of senior players. So as well, it's not even as if like the academy double century was good, but again, people have, well, yeah, as Colin said, McKenzie passed the eye test match. So I don't know, Mash. I think we've rushed into it based on a double century against what has been widely acknowledged as poor opposition. Do you think it's just Andre Coley's basically had a big input in this, having worked with the academy and just said, you know what, I think this guy passes the eye test. I think he's ready for international cricket? Because surely Coley must have had a say in it. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense for the selectors to throw him into the test setup now.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I think I agree with Colin here. It's got to be an eye test thing. Maybe it's because as a Jamaican, I'm a bit closer to the issue than if it was a youth from another island. I just personally don't think Kirk is ready yet. Me personally, I don't think he's ready yet. If it's a case, though, that they've called him up to get him experience of being in and around the test squad, that's different. So if it's a case of, you know what, we're going to carry the youth for the next however many series, we want him in and around the squad, cool. But what happens if there's an injury? Then man has to play. And I don't know. My gut feeling is that Kirk isn't ready yet, but well done to him for getting the call up all the same.
Surely if Mayers isn't playing as well as Chase, surely there's a very, very good chance McKenzie does get in the first test. Well, it's not just for experience.
And this is the next thing we have to talk about, Santokie. I was going to leave it till the end, but when you look at in fact, let's leave it to the end, because when you look at the squad, there is a more than a 50% chance that Kirk actually plays in that first test match, which is bizarre, but we'll get to that in a minute. The next talking point, Santokie, earlier today, about half an hour ago, as I was making my way home, and that's why this was a late show start today, people. I only just got home at the time we said we were going to start. Santokie, I just saw an article. Let me go back to our Twitter page. I saw an article that was being posted in Guyana. People are cussing. They're saying, where is Versamy Permo? And how did Jamel Warrican get in the squad ahead of Versamy Permo? There's an interview with Permo where Permo has said, what more do I have to do? And that he's extremely disappointed to have not been picked. Now, again, if you're keen listeners to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, you will know that Santokie and I said, I think it was before the South Africa series, in the last 2 years, Santokie, this is how our selection of spinners has gone. Cornwall and Warrican. Then I think Cornwall got a drop. Then it was just Warrican. Then Warrican got a drop. Then it was Permo. Then Permo got a drop. Then it was Chase. Then Chase got a drop. Then it was Moti. There has been no established consistency in the last 2 years for any spinner in West Indies cricket. In fact, if we're now full circle and it's back to Warrican and Cornwall again. Now, obviously, some people will say, well, boy, Moti's injured. And that's the caveat. Moti is injured. If Moti was fit, Moti would be the one who would be picked. We understand that. But how do you go, Santokie, from Moti back to Cornwall and Warrican? Even I would say without considering Versamy Permo. I definitely would have Cornwall in. I would have Cornwall in every squad. So I've got no issue per se with Cornwall. Cornwall should have been in before Chase got in. People might forget that we took Chase to Australia as the frontline spinner. So Cornwall is the premier off spinner in the region. That's not open for debate. But if you're taking a left arm spinner, how comes Warrican got the pick and not Permo, Santokie?
Yeah, I think it's a teeth out on Permo. But firstly, the Cornwall one's interesting because Cornwall is the natural choice to come in once Moti's injured. I mean, he took 35 wickets in the regional season, been consistently doing that season after season. There's been fan calls for Cornwall to get back into the side. The only thing that is strange is the sort of language West Indies selectors have been using in the past year or so. You kind of got the impression they'd moved away from him. And so it's slightly surprising to see him back into the setup. But again, it's deserved, it's warranted. Now, some could argue, I mean, you could argue this one is essentially a token argument because I don't think Warwick's going to play. And I think if Permore was picked, I don't think Permore would play because it's a second spinner. I don't think they'll go with 2 full-time spinners in Dominica. But I don't understand the logic because Warwickon hasn't played. He played, 2 first-class games for Barbados because he was on the Zimbabwe tour. He didn't play in the Headley Weeks. He didn't play in the A-team tour. Permore took a bag of wickets for Guyana. He played in the Headley Weeks, took a bag of wickets. He played 1 A-team tour in Bangladesh. So assuming the A-team tour is for players on the verge of getting into the test side, surely all the evidence suggests that Permore should have been called up instead of Warwickon. I just don't understand why Warwickon has come back. And with Permore, again, he's got the test experience as well, vast test experience. We saw what he did against Sri Lanka in 2021, was it? Or when he took a bag of wickets. So it's not as if he's been out of the test side for years and years and years and they've moved on from him. It just doesn't make any sense, Machel, from my point of view. As I said, this isn't going to be a massive issue because I don't think it's for a starting place in the side. But if I was Permore, I would feel aggrieved. I would feel that I've been denied a place in that West Indies squad based on merit.
If we're going to call it simply, if we're going to call a spade, Permo should get a pick over Warwickon every single time. If we're going to be honest, particularly as I don't know what they're using as the stats to justify Warwickon getting his pick. The other thing I'd want clarity on, Santokie, which wasn't addressed in the... remember I said this to President Shallow about press releases and how they need to be clear in why people are picked, right? Because there's been no press conference with the selectors after this squad was picked, right? When they didn't pick Cornwall for the last squad, and people were like, oh, why is he not there? Why is he not there? It was vaguely, loosely suggested it might be some kind of other... Because remember, people said that he was in the squad initially for that Zimbabwe-South Africa leg and then just disappeared and Chase suddenly was the secondary spinner. Where's the clarity to explain why Cornwall's back?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
He didn't go on the A tour. He didn't play in Headley Weeks. So why is he suddenly... Like, where's the... I don't know, brother.
This is what I mean. It seemed like they'd moved on from him. So I don't understand why has there been a U-turn in the decision to play him? Because it's not as if he's been underperforming. He's been consistently performing. So why pick him now? I'm happy they picked him, but why pick him now as opposed to last summer, for instance? What's changed in that year? And there's no clarity on that match, as you said.
Chatil says Warwickon has grabbed his chances. When? What, Bangladesh away? Bangladesh away when Cornwall and him took the... That was 2 years. That's 2.5 years ago, bro. What's Warwickon done since? In the time that Warwickon did that against Bangladesh away, Permo took 8 wickets in Sri Lanka. So don't get me wrong, it's much of a muchness to me, but I just don't think the stats are there to justify it personally. But, you know, as Santokie says, though, we can talk on that one. At the end of the day, neither one of them are playing. So whatever. Like, if there's a spinner playing, it'll be Rahkeem Cornwall. That much is certain, okay? Final argument, Santokie, or the final thing that we just want to address. People must have thought this is a long live. People, this is a quick one. You were used to these ones. Final thing to address about this squad, Santokie, is the final 11. When I looked at the squad, I had an 11, Santokie, where De Silva is batting 6, which I've got no issue with. I think that's long overdue. Holder is batting 7. So, sorry, I should say my whole squad. So the squad that I've got is as follows, or the team, sorry, the starting 11 that I've got. Yeah. Craig and Tage, Reefer at 3, Jermaine Blackwood at 4, Afanase at 5, De Silva at 6, Holder at 7, Cornwall at 8, Joseph at 9, Roach at 10, Gabriel at 11, right? That's the squad I think they will go with, which will mean that Warwickon and McKenzie miss out. That's what I think. So if there's any injured scouts on here, I just told you the 11 that they most likely should or will go with, right? However, Santokie, here's the thing. That 11 is all dependent on Josh De Silva batting at number 6. So in my notes that I've written down here to ask you is, should Josh be batting at number 6, or do they go with what they usually do? There'll be an extra batter in there, which would have to mean Kirk McKenzie comes in. I don't know where he bats, but he'd have to come in. Josh goes down to 7. Holder goes down to 8. But then the problem with that, and why I don't think that will be the team, who's the spinner then? Because you're not dropping, unless you drop Gabriel.
Yeah. My thinking was, I agree with you, Mash. I think Josh should bat at 6. We've seen the temperament he has and sort of how he should be batting with more established batters rather than being forced to struggle with the tail enders. So I think he's capable of batting at 6. But I think based on previous form, Mash, I don't think Gabriel's going to play. I can't see Gabriel, Roach, Joseph, Holder, and Cornwall all playing. I think they're going to drop Gabriel and reinforce it with an extra batter just because of India's bowling strength. So I think they're going to throw McKenzie, and that's why I think McKenzie's getting a debut on Wednesday.
The only reason I can't see that happening is because then you only have 4 bowlers in the team. So you'd only have Holder, Roach, Joseph, Cornwall. And because Mayers isn't there, Reefer. Sorry, I forgot Reefer.
Yeah,
they'd have to use Reefer in the Carl Mayers role.
That's what I was thinking.
They're not, because as the kind of we need to turn to a 5th bowler. Interesting people. I mean, Santokie and we don't know which one they'll go with, but we're pretty certain that the 10 players write themselves. It's just whether they go for Kirk McKenzie as the extra bat, or if they go for Shannon Gabriel as the extra pacer, in which case Kirk McKenzie would have to miss out.
Just a quick one, Mash, before we wrap up. Would you have gone with Gabriel, or would you have picked an Rahkeem Jordan or Jay McAllister for this 13? Do you think Gabriel is still effective at international level, basically?
We don't know. I can only repeat things that I said a couple of months ago or 6 months ago. If it was up to me, and if I had been selector, Kishore Shallow, when you listen to this episode and the rest of the Cricket West Indies board, I'm telling you again, bring me in. If it was up to me, Santokie, you know we recorded this about 6 months ago. I said then, transition Shannon Gabriel out of the Test squad into the ODI squad. Get him ready for the ODI World Cup qualifiers as an extra pacer. The man played Super 50, was the top wicket taker in Super 50. They actually listened and took him to South Africa. He played no games. If it was me, you've got a 35-year-old Shannon Gabriel, I would have had him ready for this year's World Cup qualifiers, and I would slowly begin the transition out of Test matches. Now they've gone this way. He has to play, because why else is he there then? Because he can't come into ODI contention anymore. There's no ODI World Cup now for 4 years, so he won't be playing by then. So they must. I would play Shannon Gabriel, because they must believe that that him and Alzari, they need that extra pace, and only Gabriel and Joseph have that. Unless you count Jay McAllister, have that extra pace in the region at this moment in time. Rahkeem Jordan is a movement bowler. He's a swing bowler. He requires early movement. But if you already have Jason Holder and Kemar Roach, why would you have this? Do you see what I mean? Rahkeem Jordan's too much in their mold. You prefer to have a Shannon Gabriel who you can turn to for short bursts of 4 or 5 overs and say, go crank it up.
The only concern with Gabriel is, obviously, as you said, Roach and Holder have a defined role. They sort of restrict the runs. They keep their line and length. Joseph and Gabriel, you're backing to get the wickets as the strike bowlers. I think Gabriel took 1 wicket in total against Zimbabwe, 2 against South Africa. He played 1 first-class game for Trinidad. He took 2 wickets. So my thing is, what's the upside to Gabriel? If he's not taking wickets and he can go for a lot of runs, even in red ball cricket, I don't really see the upside, bearing in mind his age as well. But it is what it is. They've gone for the experience. So it'd be interesting to see if they do put him in the 11. But as you said, Mash, why would they pick him if he wasn't going to go into 11? So there's a lot of conundrums going on. But I guess this is what we've always said in previous episodes. What we think is right, and then trying to guess what the selectors, second guess what the selectors are going to do, is always going to be a complicated task. So it'd be interesting to see what way they do go on Wednesday.
I will just say this as a final thing with Gabriel, that remember, there's also the fact that we're playing at home. And the same thing goes for Kemar Roach. They will always believe, and to be fair, rightly so, based on statistical performance, Kemar Roach, Shannon Gabriel are much better in home conditions for us. So I think they'll be banking on the fact that Gabriel and Roach tend to bring their best performances in home conditions. That's what I would assume anyway. Listen, Santokie, we're going to end this live, but before we just end this live, because it's come up from quite a few people, I'm going to just say 2 names to you, Santokie, and I want you to answer it what you believe. I think the selectors have basically ended Bonner's international career, and they've ended Darren Bravo's aspirations of coming back to the Test team as well. And let me explain why. Bonner was called up to the 18-man squad. out of nowhere, by the way, because he's been injured and didn't have a good 4-day champ. Obviously, they dropped him. He's not part of this 13-man squad. Maybe he'll come back again, but I think it might be done for him. Now, Bravo wasn't even selected for the 18-man warm-up squad. Now, this is what's bizarre to me, Santokie. The recent 4-day championship, Darren Bravo scored the second most runs in the competition behind Alec Athanaze. If you have a guy who, by the way, also has 8 test match hundreds, then that's the second most in the region after Craig Brathwaite. If you have a guy who's got that record, and then he comes to domestic cricket, scores the second most runs in the region, how does he not count as one of your best 18 players to train for a test squad? Well, they've ended his career, Santokie. His career's over.
Yeah, it's finished. I think Bonner and Bravo, we won't see them in West Indies colours again. Bravo, I don't know what the story is. Maybe there's more to it. But as you said, Mash, it's strange you're not even in an 18-man warm-up squad. I think Bonner's done. Obviously, earlier this year, we talked about how strange it was he was dropped from the South Africa series, bearing in mind his form over the previous 2 years. But I think just bearing in mind both of them are 34 years old, we're not playing another test series until January, by which time they'll be 35 or near enough 35. I just can't see them getting back in. And we don't play any regional cricket before then. So I just can't see them getting back in to the squad. So their careers are done. And it's interesting as well, because obviously there were murmurs maybe Brandon King would get a call up, but obviously that's been put on hold. I'm bearing in mind he played in the 50-over World Cup qualifiers. He'll be 30 next year. So as well, time's ticking as well with that decision. So in terms of Bonner and Bravo, I think they're done. We're not going to see them in West Indies colours again, Mash.
Last time there was a press conference, I asked Desmond Haynes at the press conference, where's Darren Bravo? I just asked him straight. And I don't know if Des, if you're watching this, go back, people, and watch it. If anyone's got the highlights of the clip, he looked a bit vexed when I asked him about it. He cut his eyes slightly still. But Haynes' response was, our talent pool is too small to close the door on anybody. Obviously, I've noted what Darren Bravo has done, right? But he's not in the he wasn't in the 18-man squad either. So man was lying to me. You see when there's a next press conference, I'm asking Desmond Haynes. That's my first question. Where's Darren Bravo, bruv? Where is he?
That shall come in like anyone who's watched The Wire. Remember when D'Angelo was asking, "Where's Wallace?" Yeah, that's Mash and Bravo. Like, where's Bravo?
Where's Bravo, Haynes? Where's Bravo?
Where the boy, Haynes? Where the boy?
Listen, people, that's been another live on the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. We wanted to do just a quick one, looking at the first Test match ahead of the first Test match against India. And we've got more content planned. Look out as well. We're recording one reviewing the World Cup qualifiers, so that one will drop as and by itself because that's just a recorded one. But we just wanted to do a quick live ahead of the day one or the first test against India. As always, follow us on the socials. You can see the ticker tape below at Carib Cricket, www.caribbeancricketpodcast.com. If you want to become a patron, become a patron. More importantly, we always wait. Like, share, subscribe. We don't know what the number of likes are, but do press like on your way out as well. Santokie, there's one question there. They said, what's your 11?
So it will be, let me think off the top of my head. Tage, Brathwaite, Reefer, Blackwood. Who did we say? Athanaze. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna go with McKenzie. I'll go with McKenzie at 6. De Silva, Holder, Roach, Joseph, Cornwall.
Oh, there you go, people. Maybe not necessarily in that order, but Santokie has McKenzie in his side. I have McKenzie out. We both believe that Warwican will not play. So let us know, people. Get in the comments below. Let us know, etc. We'll see you soon on another episode of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Thank you, as ever, for joining with us today, and look out for more notifications of future lives coming up. Cheers.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rules seem coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.